Western night. A milk bottle knocked like a lost bell. Next morning the hawk seal swallowed the porch. By night a gunshot cut half a lamp. Milk spilled white as lime. A man signed away half a water line, stepped his boundary back. On the fence, the tin cap turned its face inward. Why did a loaf without milk save a roof stay? I stood at the counter, hand wiping the spring scale so it would not jam. Salt clouded faint on the glass. The street lay still like a snake sunning. Dust crawling across the road, sounding like old paper rubbed together. My store door hissed soft whenever the wind shifted. I looked up when his shadow passed. Jonah Pike seldom looked anyone straight. He passed the store, glanced once at the cracked wooden sign, did not greet. I did not expect greeting. He pushed the door. The small bell hung on the frame, rattled, weak, short of breath. The smell of dried horsehide and old sweat came with him, mixed with flour dust fallen into the cracks of wood. I pointed at the left shelf, where fresh loaves lay with rock salt. He nodded, pulled off his glove, movements short and cut. At his fingertip, a dark bandage, not new. He lifted a long loaf wrapped in brown paper, tilted it to hear the crumb shift inside. Without words we both knew it was harder than usual. Yesterday's bread left, I said. Hard. Hard, still eats, he said, eyes measuring the loaf against his saddlebag. Voice low, not placed. I heard him from the throat, not rising all the way into words. How, one loaf? One, he answered, with milk. I nodded. I reached into the wooden crate by the shelf where the glass bottles stood. Tin cap dented at one corner, the hawk stamp still fit. Caved like a coin bitten. I often twisted the cap before handing to a buyer, testing the coarse bite of the thread. Today, at the first touch, I felt the cap warm from sunlight through the window, but inside the milk was still cold. He watched me turn the cap, eyes on my fingers as if counting. Keep the cap tight, I said. I was not sure he heard, but his eyes dropped with my hand. I screwed it down, let the thin ring of metal on glass sound out. Some liked that sound, something like a bell off beat. I held the bottle up. He caught it with one hand, did not change hands, as if milk might lose sleep, as if someone might snatch it. Paper bag? I asked. No. I looked through the window. Wind began to pull dust across the porch of the house across the road without writing. He turned out. The doorbell rattled uneven once more. I watched his back cut through the sun, wide hat brim hiding part of his face. His shadow did not keep with him, always half a beat late. I pressed the warm loaf in hand, then drew back, wrapped the brown paper tight. I carried it around the counter, followed him a few steps. No words, no need. I set the loaf on the porch edge across the road, one bootstep from the door. He did not thank, not that he needed me. Only his two hands were full and mine were free. We stood that way a while, before a door shut tight. Wind tugged a silver hair at my temple, left dust taste on tongue. He held the bottle in the unbandaged hand, the other keeping the loaf from sliding. A cut showed on his wrist. The bottle cap caught a thin stripe of light. My eyes blinked with it. He lifted the bottle, knocked on the door. The sound was not wood, not brass. It was metal on hollow, echoed, then gone. leaving memory of sound more than sound. I had heard it before. It made anyone inside know it was not mail, not papers, not a debt caller. A man bringing something soft into a hard house. No reply. He never knocked twice. Some are that way.
They knock once to say I came, then stand still, letting the inside decide whether to open.
I watched sweat trail from his temple, stop at the faint scar near ear. The door cracked. A strip of dark spilled out. I saw half Clara Vane's face. Sloped chin, bone lines sharp, lips bare, a bit dry. She looked first at the bottle, at the cap, then at his hand. She pulled the door a little more. Hinge shrieked. Smell of old paper and damp wool.
Leave it,
she said. Voice hoarse from long night. Not command, not plea. Something between. He set the loaf first, at the threshold where dust gathered. He set the bottle close, cap turned hawk outward. A sign for right hand. She did not bend quick. She looked to the street once. Eyes slid past his brim, brushed over me, went on. Wind flipped her hem, showing a rough seam. Enough? He asked. First time I heard that from him. Not a money ask, not count. I did not know what it asked. She maybe did.
Enough,
she said, very small, eyes dry.
The word fell like a dry splinter, soundless. But wait. She reached out, did not touch the bread.
She touched the tin cap first, like one touches a child's brow to check heat. Her finger pressed the dented edge. I saw the tip blanch white from grip.
Then she lifted the bottle, pressed down the cap as if fearing it.
A train whistle far off, and knowing he would not ride it, he pulled his hat lower another notch. The hand with the old bandage lifted without steadiness, finger joints faintly trembling. I saw specks of dust clinging to the bandage, like resting gnats. You need tar oil? I asked further, hand pointing at the shelf. I was not advertising. I only thought of that hinge in that house, each opening a hurt to the ear. Later, he said. His voice went past me, did not stop. She did not thank, not ingratitude, only no room for that word just then. She pulled the door in, part way. The slice of light at the threshold narrowed to a line. I heard her steps back, one step, then still. The stillness like snow falling with no snow. He bent to pick the scrap of wrapping paper. Folded once, folded twice, slipped it into his pocket. He did it slow, as if for someone else to watch. He glanced at the loaf set back on the threshold, still not drawn in. She, from inside, reached out, quietly slid the loaf in with 2 fingers, a bony hand. I saw the tin cap still in her other hand, the hawk turned outward to the road, flashing once, then gone as the door shut more. Tomorrow the wind still strong, I said, for no one. Some sentences are not for the hearer, they only set an object down. He looked across the street. The dust streak ran like a small creature, afraid of touch. He shifted his stance. The heel of his boot brushed the step, a very thin clop. I held my hand still on the counter, feeling if I moved, that sound would break. Need anything, just say, I went on, this time looking straight at him. I did not wait for reply. He tapped 2 fingers to his brim, a motion instead of a farewell, then turned. Not turning back, turning by a degree, sliding off axis so his shadow would not press another's shadow. I watched until the saddle strap slapped his thigh, making a crisp sound. I stayed this side of salt-fogged glass. I saw Clara press her ear to the bottle inside, maybe to hear milk shift, maybe something else. The tin cap was still in her hand, thumb stroking the hawk as if to smooth the dent. It would not smooth. Metal has memory, so do people. I went back to the counter. The spring scale jammed at a notch. I tapped it with nail. The needle jerked, then held. I did not tap again. I wrote a few words in the ledger, bread one, milk one, no name added. The line dried tight like a blade of grass in drought. Outside, sun poured deep. The bell no longer rang, the street flat again, like a drum skin. Inside I heard small sounds, flour falling, tile cracking, wood straining. Each rose alone, no hand leading. A fly struck the glass. I brushed it out with a scrap of without words. Someone stopped for salt, someone else came for tar oil. I pointed and weighed and wrapped. Each act a binding string. I did not glance much across the street, as if looking would make something scatter. When the sun slipped to the eve, Clara's door cracked again, enough for one arm to pull the wooden bolt across, shift its notch. Only that, no word. I knew that bolt had long rusted stuck. The faint screech, then still, sounded just like the tin cap twisting on thread. Another offbeat bell somewhere in town rang back. Maybe a gate chain pulled, maybe glasses struck in a saloon. I did not tell apart. I only listened, like listening to something once heard. And I stood there, hand on the counter, letting the question come and stay. Why would someone knock on another's door with a bottle of milk? None of us needed answer yet. Wind enough, milk enough, and the evening still long. I was sweeping dust on the porch when hammer blows struck short, flat, even. I looked up. A notice of seizure was nailed to Clara Vane's post. Wind whipped its edge like a fish caught dry. Black seal in the corner, a hawk bent in strike, bit into the thick paper grain. Sheriff Lyle Dorsey wore old leather gloves, forefinger torn, still held the hammer firm. He drove the last nail, pulled his hat low against sun. Clara stood before the post, far enough that if the wind lifted the sheet, the words would not touch her eyes. Her chin tilted a little, no blink, both hands locked on each other's elbows, a dull ring on the left flashing once, then gone. Lyle read slow, as if for someone distant to hear. Seizure of property and auxiliary water rights, until debt be paid. He stopped, rested the hammer on his thigh. His breath could be heard, not from strain, from silence. You read, then keep, Clara said, voice hoarse like damp wood, no rise or fall. Lyle glanced at the seal, pressed the paper flat with his thumb, said keep on the post, law's right. He looked once around, not into any eyes. Arlen and Wade Kestrel hid in the shadow of the barn across, cigarettes burning red, not smiling, only breathing. I set the broom handle against the wall. Wind carried the iron smell of fresh nails. On the road, dust veered. A boy stopped his pull cart, looked at the hawk seal, then bent his head and pushed on. Clara stepped forward. Her eyes slid across the paper, not holding on any word. She touched the second nail from the top, just enough skin to scrape the iron, then drew her hand back. You want me to continue with the same restrained, literal translation for the rest of the story if you paste more? Or would you prefer me to recast the whole into a smoother, Western Gothic narration, heaping coldness but flowing like a finished piece for reading aloud? You have until week's end. Heel struck the step hollow. He shoved the hammer into his belt, walked through his own shadow, shorter than usual, with sun straight. Kestrel spat tobacco near his heel. He did not turn back. I watched until the sheet stopped flapping. At the lower corner, a scratch, maybe from someone's nail. The scratch looked like a small road on the map hung in the post office, straight, then broken. I went back to the counter, set the pepper jar in place, glass on wood gave a small bell sound. Afternoon, shadows long. Jonah Pike showed at Clara's gate, shoulders narrow, hat pulled low. He carried an old hinge, a small sack of nails, and a bag of rock salt tied with hemp cord. He touched the gate, swung an inch off, heard the creak like someone breathing, cracked teeth. No calling, no knock. "I fix," he said, enough to hear, eyes not lifting to the window. Inside, no reply, only slow footfall, the wooden bolt drawn back one notch, the door not opened. Jonah set the salt bag under the step, tied the cord to the post so wind would not take. He pulled the old hinge. Nails came easy, wood rotten. Each nail he drew, he turned his hand to make the sound smaller. He measured by eye, set the new hinge, tapped light. His hammer did not sound like Lyle's at noon. Even, but light, did not force anyone to listen. I stood across the road, pliers in hand, feigning wipe. Wind ran through the nail sack, made nails twist in paper, rustle. Harlan Kestrel leaned on the fence post opposite. Wade crouched on stone, one leg shaking, shoe caked in dry, cracked mud like plowed earth. The door cracked a slit. Clara looked at the hinge, not at Jonah. "No need," she said. "Need," Jonah answered. He tapped the last nail, tried swing. The gate moved smooth, no cry. Clara silent. She pulled her main door tighter, only to test. The screech gone. The bite on ear of morning gone. "Salt there," Jonah said, pointing to the bag. "For season." "Leave it," Clara said, her hand pressed on the table inside, veins raised. Jonah stepped back 2 paces, rested hammer on thigh. Eyes measured the span from seizure paper to door like one measuring a water run. He gathered fallen splinters, retied the nail sack, stood still. Wade Kestrel whistled low. "Pike!" Jonah turned his head, only head, not body. Wade rose, brushed dust. "You owe us. Irrigation runs to your field first. Time due." Harlan laughed hoarse, lifted cigarette to lip. "When your throat drinks, that house thirsts, pity." He jerked chin toward the hawk seal sheet. Jonah glanced at the seal, then looked away as through shadow. "I pay my share," he said, voice low, laying words. I gave no reply. I set pliers down, took cloth, wiped, dry. Jonah shifted hammer to left hand. The bandage on right hand dulled, edge frayed. He moved a notch, stood between Clara's gate and the brothers, not blocking, only standing. Wind teased silver strands at his temple. "Where's money?" Wade asked. "Day 2, Jonah said. "Day 1 is lock," Harlan said, like reciting date. "Day 2, Jonah repeated, like planting a stake. Wade spat ash at Jonah's boot toe, a black mark. Jonah looked at his shoe, did not brush. "We come see at 11 sharp," Harlan said. "Lock the water." Jonah did not nod, did not shake. He only brought hammer back, slid into pouch, lifted empty bag. Clara's door did not move. The sheet on post did not move. Only the shadows of 3 men stretched, then shrank, as clouds passed the sun. A crow dropped to the wire, called once, not 3. I went back to the shop. A buyer shook head at oat price, but paid full. I wrote in the ledger. Ink bled on the word oat, then stopped. Pen point rasped on paper grain. I heard hoof on stone outside. Jonah passed, not looking in. Kestrel trailed after, at a distance, like one who guards water by hour. Late, I carried a bottle of tar oil to Clara, did not enter in the ledger. She opened the door a span, eyes steady. "You need?" I asked. "No," she said, but her hand took the bottle. "The paper, where?" I asked further. "On the post," she said, "for whoever likes to read." I nodded. No counsel. On her table, a nail left from noon lay beside a scrap of bread. She looked at the nail longer than the bread. Next morning I passed the town court. I needed to pay scale fee. The wood room, low ceiling, smell of old paper and human sweat. Sheriff Lyle sat inside, arm bandaged at bicep, white new. He looked at me like looking at a measure stick, said nothing. On the counter, a thick ledger, cover cracked, 1 page open, pinned with a rusty nail. Large line, seized property, item, dairy cattle. I lowered eyes. The words below in another hand, neat, slanting. 1 cow, household vein, witness, Jonah Pike. I did not breathe for a second. Wind from the door shook the page's edge. I set my fingertip on the cover, pushed the ledger back. My hand closed it by itself, like one pulls a coat shut when cold wind passes. The dry rub of covers together. "You need any stamp, May?" Lyle asked, voice flat as water left in a barrel. "I pay scale fee," I said. He nodded. "Sign here." He held the pen. The bandage on his hand brushed the edge of the sheet. I saw the hawk seal repeat at the receipt's corner, heavier than usual, ink thick as if freshly ground. From the back door, Harlan Kestrel stood unchanged. "By paper." Wade looked at me, pointed at his eyes, then at the street. An empty sign. I kept my face. I gave the pen back to Lyle. Ink marked a small black spot on my thumb, black as a bird's eye. When I stepped out, sun poured heavy on the steps like someone spilling cornmeal. Wind carried dry grain smell from the irrigation ditch. I passed the stable. Jonah stood alone under the shed, left hand holding reins, right hand tightening bandage at the wrist. Kestrel stood off, like shadows not yet fixed to feet. "Her gait swung smooth last night," I said, without start. Jonah nodded. "The salt left there." "Left there," he echoed. Wade snorted. "Women like salt, men like water." He glanced at the sky. Day 1. Jonah raised his eyes to the iron wheel of the water gate far off, big as a table, its black spokes dim. His eyes measured sun's angle, as he measured all things. "Day 2, he said, third time. I saw Clara standing in the shadow of her gate, a black slit between two boards. She looked toward the shed, neither forward nor back. The paper on the post quivered faint, gave a thin note into the wind, like a bell unwilling. Passers glanced, then turned away. I kept my breath steady by counting. 1, 2, 3. Each number a step of a shadow down the street. Afternoon, I went back to the shop. I set the half bottle of tar oil on the shelf. I wiped the scale. The needle did not stir. I tapped it once, not twice. On the road, Kestrel passed. Tobacco smoke knotted into the wind. Jonah passed too, slower, as if someone had nailed lead to his heels. Night fell without saying. In the shop, I lit the lamp. Flame flickered on the wall, swallowed the price board's letters, then let go. I stood long by the window, staring at the street bare, where the seizure sheet stayed white against gray. I thought of the court ledger, the line, "Witness, Jonah Pike," a line that made no sound but pressed weight. It did not argue, did not explain. It only lay there, like a stone set in a stream. Outside, the crow called again, once, not 3. I blew the lamp out. In the dark, the hinge of the house no longer screeched, only wind passing the teeth of things gone dry. I stood until my eyes took to it, then I remembered. Tomorrow was day 1. Someone had said 2. Wind does not choose. Men choose. I wrote it nowhere. I only folded the cloth once, laid it by the scale, still. The saloon darker than usual, chewing a dead cigarette. None spoke. They stood still a beat, letting eyes take to the dark. I watched the tin star on Lyle's chest, not brighter than his eyes. Jonah Pike already there. He leaned on the counter, hat pulled low, a glass milk bottle by his elbow, tin cap dented, hawk stamp turned outward. A stray detail in the saloon. It made the glasses around it look like a pile of raw stone with a living thing in the middle. I heard the milk tap the glass wall, slow, like someone refusing to stir. Lyle walked straight. He laid a receipt on the counter, exactly over a dry ring from a glass. The hawk seal stamped the stain, black ink gloss. His other hand rested near the grip, not touching, but the thumb had already found place. "Choose," he said, from the throat, short, cold. Jonah looked at the paper first, did not touch. His breath stayed even. Harlan's mouth drew a smirk. His eyes slid to the milk bottle like to an animal caught off path. Wade tapped his heel against the counter leg, 3 times, even, like a clock. I laid the pen crosswise on my book, pinned the page. Lyle's left arm twitched slight, bandage under sleeve showing white. He pressed a bare finger on the paper's corner. "Sign," he said, "or we take your Watergate now." "Law's red," Wade added, voice like reciting prescription. "Whose law?" I asked, just enough. No one looked at me. Clara Vane stood by the side door, under the porch shadow. She did not come in. She did not draw back. Her dress patched at the elbow, hair tied quick. The lamp lit her boot tip, shone like stone skin. Her eyes slid from the seal on paper to the tin cap on the bottle, held there a beat. "Set the gun down," Jonah said. He did not look at the gun. He did not look at the man. He looked at the seal. "Not drawn," Lyle answered, his thumb still there. "Then speak it," Jonah said. "Say the rest." Harlan let out a dry laugh. "The rest is water. Runs our fields first, runs others after. Choose mouth to speak or hand to sign." The lamp wick turned too high by someone. Flame swelled, then sank. On the counter, the milk bottle caught the flare, threw back a thin line. I read on the cap the hawk pressed down, wings folded. Same as the bird on the paper. 2 hawks, one in ink, one in metal. Looked like kin staring through an old wine stain. "I sign my part," Jonah said, "not another's." Wade jerked his chin at Clara. "Another stands there, yielding. Just clearing one thing from another's path." His finger brushed the tin cap. The hawk flashed once in the lamp. The dent cast a warped shadow. I thought of the noon seal on the seizure sheet, also warped at corner. "Day 2, Jonah said, eyes locked on Lyle's. "Day 1, Lyle answered, steady. "Day 2, Jonah repeated. The word fell like a stake, half-driven. Harlan shook his coat, showed worn wood grip. Wade tilted his head, as if hearing water run somewhere. The floorboards under them breathed. I laid hand on my book, counted bones instead of hours. 1, 2, 3. I saw Lyle's bare finger twitch, not much, like a string tested. Wade raised a hand to his hat. Harlan cracked his neck, faint pop. Jonah leaned, as if a name was called behind him. No call, only Wade's sharp smoke peeling off cloth mixed with old liquor on wood. A metal snap cut the air, one gunshot. I did not see who fired. I only saw a glass on the rack break in half, the lamp cut dark in half. Fire crawled a glass edge, then die, leaving a small red point like a bird's eye. The saloon leaned toward silence. The milk bottle split from neck to body, a straight knife line. Milk burst, ran down the wood edge, white as lime wash. It split old wine stains into 2 banks, flowed in a streak, lamps dead light, showing dull. Someone cursed under breath. Not clear. The tin cap popped free, rolled once on the counter, fell, skidded. It did not fall like falling. It fell like finding a path with least light. The hawk turned up, then down. Each time down, the black ink on the paper glinted in my eye like a drawn slash. Clara stood still at the door. The cap slid, stopped at her boot toe. The dent bit the leather, left a bright coin mark. She raised her head, eyes dry, hair shifted on shoulder, hand did not reach. She let it lie, like one lets a word just spoken lie on the table. "Enough," Harlan said low, voice frayed, but his hand still hung on the grip. "Not yet," Lyle said, eyes on Jonah. "Not to the word." "Shut up," Wade threw into the air, not at anyone clear. Jonah bent to steady the bottle, like steadying a head just broken. His hand wet with milk. Milk smell mixed smoke smell, a smell not knowing kitchen or morgue. He propped the bottle. Milk froth shook, choked, the receipt's edge wet, the black seal between the wet paper and old stain. It had no shape, but it weighed the weight of choice. Someone drew a deep breath, then held. Only milk dripped from the counter, struck floor, burst white spots. Lyle looked at Clara, then at Jonah. His bare finger left the paper corner. Gun grip blackened back in shadow. Harlan shifted stance. Wade licked dry lip. The match in his teeth fell, clicked out. She did not say yes. She did not say no. She did not pick the cap. Her boot tip held it, kept the hawk from turning. She only breathed even, shoulders steady, eyes set on Jonah like steel set to stone. Straight, flat, uncut. "I heard enough," Wade growled, but not louder than milk drip. "Not you," Lyle cut. He lifted the paper off the stain, shook the milk. A white drop struck the tin star. He did not wipe. Jonah let the broken bottle go. His hand, white with milk, black with dust. He turned the pen back toward himself, laid it down. Did not hold. The move made Harlan clutch the grip tighter. I heard leather scrape wood. Lyle flicked a glance quick at Clara, then back to paper. The door closed on wind. The lock bar slid already, noiseless. The lamp steadied at low flame. Every face sank to shadow. Only objects stayed sharp. The paper with hawk seal, the cracked bottle, the milk streak white as lime, the tin cap under Clara's boot. "Choose," Lyle said, final, like to the scale in my shop, not to a man. I thought of the scale's needle stuck between marks. If struck, it would jerk, then settle back the same. I did not strike. Here none struck. Jonah raised his eyes, not to Lyle, to Clara. His sentence still lay there, on the counter, like a thing all could see, but none had right to touch. Clara held her gaze. Her toe perhaps felt the cold metal, but none knew save her. Harlan coughed soft. Wade chewed air. Lyle drew the paper back an inch, the pen still there. The bottle leaked another streak. Milk cut a path through the wine stain, swallowed it into dullness. The smell of milk pressed over the smell of liquor, light as someone soothing a child. Strange, the smell gave no ease. "Go," someone whispered at the door. Clara did not turn. She only lowered her chin a little, enough for her hair to slip a notch. The tin cap still lay, the hawk faced inward. No word of assent, no word of refusal. The saloon kept Jonah's words. Like walls keep the nights cool. Outside, wind ran the street, lifted sand and dropped it. No one counted, no one measured. Inside, the word choose hung, like a lamp shot in half, but not out. We stood there, listening to milk fall. each drop without blink. Few passed. Wind rolled dust up, dropped it like ash. Inside, the clerk's desk held a ledger open. Pen stood upright in ink, rim black crust. The hawk seal lay beside, handle cracked, rubber face smeared, gloss as a fisheye. I stood by the wall, palm on wood grain. Jonah Pike stepped in, hat in hand. He did not bow, only stood square at the desk, other hand down his side, the old bandage at his wrist frayed dry. "Name?" the clerk asked, eyes not lifting. "Jonah Pike," he answered. "Transfer what?" "Half irrigation rights." "To whom?" "Clara Vane." Paper passed. Lyle stood behind the clerk, his gaze on Jonah's neck like gauging length. The kestrels still as fence posts, long set. Jonah took the pen, signed clear slanting. The nib scraped paper, dry sound. Each stroke like a small cut on wet wood. The hawk seal pressed the corner, sank into fiber, a soft thud like breath. No cheer, no curse. "Done," the clerk said. "Keep one copy," Lyle said, old voice. Kept. Jonah set the pen back straight. He turned out. Harlan lifted chin a notch. Wade tore the tip of a cigarette with his teeth, spat it to floor. No spit sound. On the step, sun burned. Jonah put his hat on, passed by me. I said enough for him. Wind harsh tonight. "Yeah," he said, eyes not turning. We walked parallel down the street. Me to the shop, him to the stable. My shop door swung on the hinge oiled with tar last night, moved smooth. From my side glance, I saw the kestrels stride toward the canal. Lyle lingered on the step longer than needed. He looked at his bandaged hand as if it belonged elsewhere. Noon. People talked, not loud. Groups bent shoulders, half-mouth. "Signed," someone said. "Half," someone answered. Eyes on boots more than on faces. I sold salt, hemp cord, needles. Jonah stopped by. Hat off, mended a torn rein on my step. Black thread pulled through leather hole, rasping like saw teeth against damp cloth. I sat on the tall chair, handed him another needle when the first frayed. He nodded. "No thanks, no need." "The Watergate?" I asked. "Run slow," he said. "Enough for season?" "No," he answered. Light darkened half of it. "From where?" I asked. "With the bottle," she said. "Which bottle?" "The bottles," she corrected. No smile, no need. I ran a finger across the hawk. The pressed groove held my fingertip like a scar. I looked at the dent. It looked like a mouth bent wrong. "I think," she said slow, "the milk these weeks. Maybe from the very cow lost." Wind passed the door, lifted a thin dust onto the counter edge. A grain landed on the cap, veiled one feather line. "I didn't ask," I said. "Nor I," she answered. She covered the cap with her hand, did not take it. She left it on the counter, like someone placing down proof unnamed. Her eyes went off me, rested elsewhere, maybe the door, maybe the porch post, where the paper still fluttered faint with each passing wagon. Then she turned. Her scarf slipped half a notch on her shoulder. I thought to tell, but did not. She came back an hour later, carrying back a loaf, the brown paper still folded neat. She set it down without a word, then reached across the counter, slipped into my coat pocket a coil of wire, the kind used for fixing broken fence. The motion quick, clean. "What for?" I asked. "For binding," she said, eyes straight. "Binding where?" "Between," she answered. I felt the coil bulge my coat side, light but stubborn. I did not take it out. I left it there, heavier than intent. I recalled the ring of keys lying at her porch, teeth catching light. No one took them. They lay like a word not sent to anyone. Evening closed early. Folks home, the kestrels gone quiet. Lyle came to no saloon, no shop. The ledger at court surely shut, the seal wiped with damp cloth. I stood on the porch, leaned against worn post. Wind tasted the salt stuck to glass, step cold. Down in the ditch, water ran low, sound small as whisper. I heard a shovel strike far. Again, even, not hurried, not hid. I followed sound across empty ground to the fence line between Jonah's field and the waste behind. Moon, thin as an old knife, not enough to count posts, enough to show a bent figure. Jonah. He was pulling posts, shifting back a step. Dirt fell in clumps on his boots. Shovel dug, pried, pulled. Hole filled. Post set again. Wire stretched, slackened, stretched. Each post knew its new place the moment it stood. I stood, did not call. No one witnessed except me. He did not look at me. He measured by his shadow on the ground, adjusted so the shadow shortened, as if trimming a sentence. Shovel changed hands. Bandage at wrist split a thread. He did not tie. "Shift back so far?" I asked, low. "Enough to clear the water," he said. Which bucket weighed more than when I received it. Wet earth smell pressed over the old milk smell, still in memory of last night's saloon. At Clara's gate the keys still lay. Moonlight washed their teeth pale as lime. The door latch inside shifted. The hinge went smooth. The seizure paper on the post no longer stirred. Nails held tight. The hawk on the seal stood still. Jonah drove the last post. His hand trembled a little as he dropped the shovel. He stepped back, eyed the new fence line, straight, set inward, quiet. He took his hat, beat dust off the brim, put it on without fixing. He walked past me like walking through wind. "Night," I said. "Yeah," he said. "No thank you, no sorry." Only earth moved, water freed, keys left, wire bound, and a new line standing in. I went back to the shop, locked a door. The clock hand shifted a notch. I pulled out the coil Clara had slipped into my pocket, set it on the counter. It held tight, kept its shape like one clutching a pillow at night. I laid it beside the tin cap she left. The two did not touch. Between them, a gap just wide enough to pass without skin scrape. Next morning, people would pass and read the paper again, low-voiced. Someone would ask if water was enough. Someone would joke about bread. None would mention the dry milk stain still on the saloon's counter. Nor would I. All had changed taste. Milk sunk into wood, earth rose in lungs. If naming, I would not. A name on paper earns a seal. Hawks like dark corners of ink. Men choose silence to pay. That afternoon the wind turned, not strong, just enough for the fence wire to make a dry snap like metal biting its tongue. I stood on the shop porch, wiping glass, salt film streaking. Clara Vane crossed the street, eyes on none. In her hand the tin cap stamped with hawk, dented edge. A thin wire threaded its hole, twisted tight. She carried it like one carries what is not heavy, yet demands both hands still. The fence of Jonah Pike ran the west field. Barbed wires stretched straight through cracked earth, posts set even, moved back the night before. She came to the third post from the gate, stood one beat for wind to pass her hair, then raised her hand. The cap touched the wire, made a small tick. She hooked its wire over a barb, twisted it firm. The hawk faced the road, the cap to the wind. It shivered, faint, gave a thin note like a bell unwilling. I crossed the street, not fast. Jonah at the stable porch, hammer in hand, bandage bound coarse at wrist. He did not step, only glanced, then lowered his eyes to the ground line set new. Sheriff Lyle rode past the street's head, held. The hawk faced the field. The wire bit the tin edge, fixed. Clara stepped half back, watched the sway. She did not say done. She only breathed. She only breathed. He knows, doesn't he? I asked. The wind says, she answered. She twisted another knot of wire, bit the tail off with her teeth, spat the piece to ground. No one stepped on it. Jonah tapped the hammerhead on the step, a thin sound. He left the hammer upright, leaned to his thigh, eyes fixed on the fence wire. The bandage on his hand whiter with dust, one corner black. He moved his chin faint toward Clara, like someone marking a small point on a map. She did not nod, no need. I went back to the shop as the sun dropped another notch. The cap stayed tied to the wind sound, a pin in the new line. That thin bell called no one. It only was. And its face turned to the field, not the house. Night came slow. I heard water low in the ditch. The wick burned down a notch, pulled in. I shut the door, set the bar. Insects covered most noise, left only a thread-thin tone from the fence wire, like I always heard, not sure I did. Morning before Clara's gate, a new loaf, paper folded neat. No milk, only a slip of white paper, no words, pinned by a round stone. I stepped out early, saw the sun cut the paper's edge into a lime stripe. The gate did not open, the door did not crack. I carried the scale to the step, cut hemp cord from a crate with shears. Jonah passed, hat pulled low, heel tapping wood. He did not look at the bread. He looked at the stone on the paper, his face unchanged. "What do you sell this morning?" he asked. "Salt," I said, "and thread." "No need," he answered, his eyes still on the stone. Clara slid the inside bolt with a soft sound. The door did not open. A hand reached out, pulled a loaf in, left the stone. The paper gone under the door's shadow. No thanks. No question. The hinge moved smooth, the hinge replaced. I stepped down one step, sat. Jonah stood. Wind lifted his brim an inch, set it back. I did not mention milk, neither did he. By the ditch the kestrels walked. One bent to gauge the water's low mark. Wade kicked a clod into the run, waited for it to melt. It did not. Sheriff Lyle stood at the crossroads, hand on the saddle horn, white bandage showing under sleeve. They did not come into town. They stood like marks at the paper's margin. "No words," I said, eyes at Clara's gate. "No words," Jonah echoed, voice not asking. In the shop, I left an empty space on the shelf where the milk for him always stood. The gap stayed like an item not arrived. I did not fill it. Gaps sometimes sell more. Noon, the sun flashed, then hid in clouds. Wind drew dust. The ditch carried 2 empty pails, walked the new water path. She stood with her shadow, counted in her way, eyes on none. On the way back, she paused at Jonah's fence, heard the thin bell strike once, wind at the cap. She lifted her eyes, did not fix, did not take. "May," she called soft, passing my shop. "Yeah," I said. "You have a large needle?" "Yes." I handed it, asked no use. She took, walked. Her shadow shortened as the wind turned. Late, sun broke in dull shards on the barn roof. Jonah sat on the porch, back to the post, hand rebandaged. Hammer leaned on step, his eyes out to the field, not the fence. A plate of beans, cold by his chair. Flies landed, then left. He did not wave. I stood at the line, last post. The tin cap still there, hanging on wire. the hawk now facing inward toward his porch. I did not know when it turned. The wind could, a hand could, or wire breathing. None said. None saw clear. Sheriff Lyle passed on horseback, did not stop. He glanced, lips pressed at the cap, the kestrels at a distance smoking, eyes blank as men reading foreign letters on water. None spoke of water. None spoke of paper. Those things stood long enough to speak themselves. I stepped closer, tapped the cap with my nail. The sound went nowhere. It struck the thickness of dusk, then stayed. "You eating?" I asked low. "Yes," Jonah said, eyes still at the field. "Cold by now." "Eat cold," he answered. The line flat. From Clara's house, kitchen smoke rose straight, then bent, caught on dry branch, her gate open. The stone back by the planter, the white paper gone. Maybe burned, maybe tucked in wood, not matter. The cap turned inward like a half-shut eye, not guarding outside, but the still inside. From here, it no longer looked like a seizure seal. It looked like something kept to mark a moment, not to forget. The time milk spilled like lime, the pen laid down, the fence line pulled back. It did not call, it only hung. "You need anything, May?" Jonah asked after, voice enough. "No," I said. "Leave it." He nodded, no smile, no deep breath. His bandaged hand lay on his thigh, thumb twitched once, counting. The sun dropped under trees, fence posts cast long into new ground, darker than old. Water moved even through rock teeth, not rushed. A crow came, perched on a wire knot, eyed the cap, did not peck, flew off, left no sound. I returned to the shop when someone's window lamp sparked. On the counter, Clara's wire coil still there. Beside it, the second cap still hung, not taken down, like a sentence already spoken, not needing to be written. When the wind died, the tin cap still hung on the fence wire. Hawk turned inward. It did not sound, it only stayed, like a sentence already said. Bread remained, milk no longer brought, water given path, land line pulled back, each thing paid. No ornament needed. Maybe healing here is only this. Fix a hinge so doors don't shriek. Set a key ring on a step and walk away. Sign off half the water without defense. Let a small object hang as a mark, so silence is kept. People no longer promise. They keep. The next day broke pale. No rooster. Only the ditch water moving slow under reed. I swept the shop step with a willow branch. Dust stayed. I left it. Jonah crossed early, not stopping. Hat low, hands bare. The bandage gone. New skin tight across his knuckle. Lines red, like drawn chalk. He did not lift them. His boots tapped hollow on planks, then quiet. Clara's gate still shut. The stone gone from the planter. Soil flat, as if pressed with palm. The hinge no longer showed shine. Oil sunk in. She had worked it in, night. The fence wire hummed, thin in morning chill, though wind absent. Sometimes metal holds old air. I found a scrap of cloth under my crate. Gray, not hers. Torn at corner. Could be rag, could be sleeve. I set it on the counter. Left it there. Customers looked once, then away. No one asked. Midday, Wade came in for salt. His eyes to the shelf gap where milk once stood. "None?" he asked. "None," I said. He nodded. Put coin down, exact. No talk of bargain. Took the sack, left. Boots dragged a line outside, like marking his way back. Sheriff Lyle leaned his horse at trough, not drinking, only hand on horn, thumb rubbing brass worn thin. He did not step down. His gaze stayed long at Jonah's porch, then at the line where Tin Cap hung. He did not ride closer. The horse stamped once, caught bit, shifted. He turned off, without word. Afternoon, children kicked dust clods near ditch. One clod struck wire post. The bell sound came faint. They froze, looked at each other, then ran. Laughter held tight in chest, not let out. Silence after them heavier than before. I closed shop early. Inside, the coil of lamp in Clara's window. Only her gate cracked once, then shut. No figure passed. The stone still missing. The paper not returned. A smell of ash, faint, carried cross-yard. I lay awake. Heard nothing. No thin bell, no tick of scale. Only absence. Weight thicker than sound. At dawn, bread on my step again. No paper, no stone, only bread. Loaf plain, uncut, warm still. I lifted it. Saw no mark under. Only plank. I ate none. Left it on counter. Jonah passed, eyes at bread, no change. He asked nothing. By noon, dust rose higher than fence. Travelers crossed without stop. They looked once at Tin Cap, once at porch, then ahead. Word spreads without tongue. Objects tell. Evening again, I tapped cap with nail. No sound came. Metal dull, as if filled. Jonah did not rise, did not speak. His breath even, eyes still. I stepped back, let line be. Some marks are not for moving. Some are to stand, to keep air taut. The cap stayed, hawk shape bent, unread, wire held. Fence posts stretched long shadows over field newly marked. Inside I set the bread beside the coil. Both silent, both wait, both reminders. Night deep, I lay with window open. Heard nothing but own breath. That was enough.